see if anybody's putting anything in chat. So I'm happy to take questions at the end, but Raz, if anybody asks like a pressing question that you think it's worth interrupting me for, feel free. Yeah, I don't mind the odd interruption and stuff if something comes up that will help people's understanding as we're going. So I'm going to cover the new Omnichannel for Voice channel and try and show you some details on that, and also go a little bit into maybe some real world scenarios, because I've been working on some live projects with this and I want to try and give you some kind of insights as to what it's like running an Omnichannel Voice project and some of the not exactly pitfalls, but challenges you might face and things that you want to think about when you're running one of those projects. So I guess a quick introduction about myself. First of all, my name is Neil Parkhurst. I'm a freelance consultant. So you've got my contact details there. Thank you very much. I'm a Microsoft MVP and I'm a Microsoft certified trainer. Now, I kind of specialize in customer service projects and contact center projects. Now, previously that meant unified service desk, but these days more and more, almost exclusively for me these days, it's all about omnichannel. So this is kind of an area that I've been working on for quite a few years. In fact, kind of before I was involved with Dynamics, I was still working in companies that had contact center requirements. So it's an area that I've got quite a bit of experience in. Now, I coined a phrase or made a comment to Microsoft back in, I think, 2016 around contact center in a box was the phrase, because we had, or Microsoft had, all the component technologies needed to give us a contact center solution. So we'd got Skype at the time, or Teams. We'd got unified service desk, we'd got Dynamics 365, we'd got chat products that were third-party products, but were pretty good products like CafeX's Live Assist and stuff. But when it came to the telephony piece, it all got a bit more complicated, because all of a sudden we had to do third-party integrations, and there were some add-ons for unified service desk out there from people to try and support this. But it was actually quite difficult to bring a voice channel into Dynamics through Unified Service Desk for a contact center. And specifically things like, for example, getting call recordings was difficult. So if you got an Avaya system and that was doing the call recordings, that's great. But getting that call recording back into Dynamics and attached to the case or the contact or the conversation that we were having at that time is actually quite a big technical challenge. And doing a screen pop of a contact is fairly straightforward in Unified Service Desk, but actually, if what the customer wanted was the full soft phone functionality but baked into the user interface, we're talking about some serious bits of customization there to do that. So, you know, it's been an area that I've enjoyed working in for ages, but I've had, you know, some frustrations, hence my frustrated face there. But now in 2022, we finally have Omnichannel Voice. So what is Omnichannel Voice and why is that making me so happy? So it's a first-party voice channel built on Azure Communication Services, which is kind of the, you know, the infrastructure that Teams is built on. And we all know that Teams is, you know, robust, scalable, reliable communication system. So, you know, it's built on good foundations. Being first party, we then don't have to worry about any integrations, and it's just like turn it on, start using it pretty much. It also, being part of the Omnichannel suite, plays nicely, as I've described there, with the other channels. So when we're talking about chat or SMS, or even routing records like emails or cases direct to our agents, and all the social channels like Twitter and Facebook Messenger and all the others, because it's all the same platform, things like the agent's presence and the agent experience is all consistent across all these channels. So we can have one agent that might be taking a phone call 1 minute, might be doing a web chat the next, might be handling a WhatsApp message the next minute, etc. And it's all through the same consistent interface. And that interface of choice is the customer service workspace. So we'll have a quick look at the customer service workspace in my demonstration. So the customer service workspace it gives us the capabilities we need in a contact center. And typically people in a contact center are juggling multiple customer queries concurrently, and they're opening multiple records for each query. So we need a multi-session, multi-tab interface to support that, to help them juggle what they're doing. We also need productivity tools like agent scripts, integration in with the knowledge base, maybe Teams integration to have a collaborative chat with a colleague about this customer's problem whilst they're in the middle of a phone call or a chat conversation. And then we can further extend that with the Smart Assistant, which out of the box gives us AI suggestions on similar cases or knowledge articles that might help us. But we can build further extensions on that. So this interface can become our kind of go-to place for our agents. Now, previously with Unified Service Desk, that kind of did a lot of what Customer Service Workspace does, but it didn't include the routing. So we're leveraging now the unified routing capabilities that come alongside Omnichannel, and that gives us the ability to classify the conversations as they're coming in, to route them to agents, maybe based on skills, and then, or route them to queues, sorry, maybe based on skills, and then further to assign to agents. And we could do that based on capacity, around robin, and we can even now build custom assignment logic. So if a conversation comes in from a particular customer and you know that a particular account manager owns the relationship with that customer, you could detect that and try and route it to that owner with a custom assignment rule. You can do some really clever things. So, for example, if we were working on a case, we could route that case directly to the owner of the case rather than to a team and such like. So unified routing gives us the capabilities we need to support handling all these channels. We've got an IVR, and obviously the IVR being Microsoft is based on Power Virtual Agents, and I'll show you some examples of how I've customized the IVR within my setup, and how we can build some potentially quite powerful IVR configurations. So I've got quite a simple one, but I hope it'll give you the kind of idea that the Power Virtual Agent could query the dynamics data and then effectively have a conversation with the customer about that data. So you might, for example, get the IVR to recognize who the customer is and then query to see if they've got any open cases, and then say things like, are you calling about, and it read out the title of the case and things like that. So you can get some really sophisticated kind of IVR capability with no code, which is like the really exciting thing about this. Pretty much everything I'm going to show you today has been set up with just a bit of config and zero code, and that's a really important point with this as a concept. Being Microsoft, Microsoft excel at the AI capabilities, so things like real-time sentiment, real-time call transcripts, and all sorts of reporting capabilities and stuff are kind of baked into the product without doing complex integrations or complex kind of reporting requirements and stuff. So I'm really excited about all this because it's just like it does nicely things that I've found to be challenging in projects for years now. So I hope you can get the vibe here that I like this thing, and I'm hoping by the end of the demonstration you're going to be in the same camp. Now, it's a telephony platform, so let's talk about the telephone numbers for a second. So we're going to end up with a scenario ideally where Microsoft is your carrier, so your telephony provider, and it's providing the whole end-to-end scenario. And that then brings, it's just nice and neat. One shop for everything, and everything will integrate well. So with Microsoft as a carrier, we can provision new numbers directly in Azure Communication Services, and then those numbers synchronize into Omnichannel, and we can just use those telephone numbers. But there's also a process you can follow to port existing numbers into Azure Communication Services. So, companies aren't going to want to have all new numbers because they're adopting this. They can bring their existing numbers. There's also a concept that believe is still in preview around bring your own carrier. So in this scenario, you might keep your current telephony provider, your telephony infrastructure, but you still leverage Omnichannel and Azure communication services and all the capabilities that's got. Now, for that, you do need a certified SBC, so a session border controller. And at this point, I'll put my hands in the air and I will admit I'm not a telephony kind of infrastructure expert, and I haven't actually tested this piece out, but it is there. So you can stick with your existing carrier, assuming you've got the right infrastructure to do so. So that's worth having a look at. Release date. We're talking about something that's a pretty new product for Microsoft. So it is already GA, including the ability to do trials in North America, kind of main Europe geos and Asia. I think it is GA in Australia, and I think they still can't do trials just yet. Now, this kind of information is changing so fast. That's why I'm going, I think, all the time. So this was correct when I put this presentation together, which might be a week or two ago now. So, even now, you need to go on the Microsoft sites and check what I'm telling you, to check that, things haven't moved on and these things are now available. So other geos at that moment in time, like France, Germany, and a few others, including India, were still to be confirmed. So Microsoft hadn't set dates. Now, I'm based in the UK, so I'm obviously focused on UK implementations. UK trials are available from June. I tried about 4 or 5 days ago and I couldn't get a trial, but so I assume it might be the end of June. But it would be GA in the UK by October. So, this is brand new stuff. I hope you get that kind of feeling. Now, the subject I always like to tackle, or I always don't like tackling these days, is the Microsoft licensing and the cost. So I thought, if I don't put a slide in on costs, the elephant in the room kind of slide, well, somebody's going to ask the question at the end. So let's talk about licensing. You need a customer service enterprise license, and then the omnichannel capabilities are an add-on. Now, I've put the prices here in sterling. Obviously, you'd have to adjust it if you're not in the UK. So once you've got a customer service enterprise license, if you just want web chat, there's an omnichannel chat option that you can add on, and that's currently £45 in the UK. If you need to just add voice through Omnichannel, then that would be £56. But then you can start to mix and match things. So if you needed digital messaging, so all the different social channels and chat, that could be 56. But if you wanted social channels, chat, voice, so the whole shooting match, and that'd be £67. So you can mix and match those licenses. Now, a question that's come up for me kind of multiple times, I guess, has been, but we want to use Omnichannel for a sales scenario, so a telesales function or a sales function. It's not customer service. So if you've got currently a sales enterprise license, as we stand today, I don't believe you can add the Omnichannel add-ins into a sales enterprise license. So what you'd need to do is add an attached license to your sales enterprise license, which would be a customer service enterprise attached license, which in UK prices, I think, is around about £15. And then you can add in the omnichannel capabilities on top of that. So you just need to be aware of that. But most scenarios with contact centres are around logging cases and stuff. So generally people have got customer service enterprise licenses. But, if you haven't, it's not the end of the world, but you may well need an attached license to do it. I'm pausing to see if Raz has got any questions on licensing. Please don't have loads of licensing questions. Now, as I explained, Omnichannel Voice isn't GA in the UK yet. In fact, you can't even get a UK-based trials. So I've been working on what you can do is create a trial, but locate that trial in North America, and then you can have a trial with the capabilities if you want to try it now. But I've already been working on multiple voice projects One in particular is quite a large leather goods supplier in Texas, and they're quite close to being ready to go live. In fact, they're doing some kind of semi-live tests now, so that they're well along with their project. There's an e-commerce company I've been working with in California that has had some interesting challenges because they've got multiple phone numbers and multiple brands, so we'd have to do lots of complex routing with those guys. I've also been supporting Microsoft partners in the UK, US, Switzerland, and even Australia. So despite it not even being GA in the geo that I work in, I've actually been involved with quite a few live projects, and I will try and show you bits and pieces connected with that as we go through the demonstration. So I don't know whether everybody's familiar. You see this kind of chart I've got at the bottom. This is the where you go in terms of the adoption kind of chart. And yeah, it's worth being mindful that, you know, with Omnichannel Voice, we're at the early adopter kind of stage, I would suggest. You know, we've not got to the early or late kind of majority phases where you know most users will be as they come on. So anybody using it right now has got to be kind of, I guess, mindful that, you know, it's an early release. Having said that, you know what, I've still been pretty impressed with it, and I haven't had any problems with the projects. But you might want to be aware of some gaps, and I don't mean gaps as in failings in the product, really. What I mean is Microsoft has launched this omnichannel product, or the voice channel, and it's competing in the marketplace against companies like Genesys, companies like Avaya, Cisco, whatever, and whoever else, telephony platforms that have been around, some of them potentially for decades. So I think it would be reasonable to expect that Microsoft has got some catching up to do, which they're doing incredibly fast. But there are some scenarios around complex callback logic can be difficult in some contact centers. So deciding if the customer requests a callback, who's going to call the customer back and when, and things like that. There's some outbound automations around things like predictive dialers, which are automated dialers that would dial out to the customer typically in telesales scenarios. Yet that kind of capability is not there yet. There's some things around call dispensation, so categorizing your conversations, that you'd have to do it maybe manually at the moment, or maybe build some extensions, whereas what would be really cool and would be an AI-based system to interpret the transcript and automatically categorize calls for your MI later. Telephone number matching at the moment, for example, I think needs a little bit of work. It kind of matches against, say, the mobile phone number on the contact, or the business phone number on the account, and that works fine. But we are reliant on the phone numbers being entered in the correct format. Well, not everybody's numbers are entered in the correct format, so I think there's some enhancements that could be done there to make that matching of the or that popping of the contact effectively based on the telephone number a little bit more efficient. And I've seen other capabilities like workforce management in other products. So things like trying to interpret based on the call profile we've had, how many staff that we're going to need next week, but based on our you know, call volumes we're getting at the moment, and make predictions and stuff. And there may be some other gaps. Now, it's not to say that each one of these you could think about and actually you could probably customize yourself. So I'm not saying presenting these as being like showstoppers, but you just need to be aware this is an early release of a version, early release of a product, and you might need to consider, are there any gaps between what Microsoft are doing and what you might have in, you know, a really established product. Having said that, I really want to stress that I'm not putting these forward as being deficiencies in the product. That they are areas that I do hope, and I think we can be pretty confident that Microsoft will enhance as we go forward. Now, we're not just going to go through all these parrot fashion on slides. I want to get into the demo, and I'll show you some stuff as we're going. But what I'd like to do in my demonstration is to try and show you some of the real world challenges I've faced. So things like Out of hours, how do we handle if somebody calls at 3 a.m. Sunday morning, and we're not manning the contact centres then? Or what if our queues into the contact centre get massive? Do we just make customers wait longer and longer, or what steps are we going to take to handle that? I've done quite a lot of work with the IVR bots, and I'll show you a few of those around how we do things like skills-based routing based on what the IVR is saying. And the one I've put there is emergency messages. I'll try and demo that to you. So the customer I work with in Texas had got a particular scenario around the contact center needing to suddenly close, and that was because they're located in what's known as Tornado Alley. And in Tornado Alley, at certain times of the year, they might suddenly have to vacate the building and I assume go down to a bunker or something. So they wanted a quick way to flip the system into a state where if anybody calls up whilst that was happening, the customer would be read an emergency message and has to call back later and things like that. So I'll show you how we achieve that, and also to show you that as an example of how we can query from the bot dynamics data and actually use that data within our bot and within our routing, and a few other things that I'll show you a few along the way, and if people ask questions, I may well go off at tangents or whatever. So hopefully that kind of sets the scene. I've deliberately rattled through those slides quite quickly to give myself as much time as possible for demonstration, and also save plenty of time for questions at the end. So I'm quite keen to address any questions people have got. And if I can find my screen, yeah, hopefully you can see that. So this is the customer service workspace. Now I'll get into actually doing a phone call in a second, but you may or may not be familiar with the customer service workspace and how it operates. So I'll give you a bit of an overview of how this operates, and then we can start to dive into some voice call scenarios. I will point out as I'm doing this demo, I am going to find it quite difficult at some points, and that's because I'm using my microphone and obviously my speakers for this call, for a Teams call. I'm also going to be using that to talk, and I'll have my phone going, and it can result in a bit of feedback. So you'll have to bear with me when we get to that point in the presentation. And if there's any kind of if the call sounds a little bit, there's a bit of feedback or whatever, trust me, that's just this scenario of this setup, trying to demonstrate voice call whilst I'm already on a voice call, which is not always simple. Now I've just realised there's an option in Teams that I didn't click when I started this presentation. So I'm momentarily going to stop my presentation and just instantly restart it because I don't think you'll hear the audio from my system unless I select an option when I start the presentation. So give me 20 seconds, if that. I'll just stop and go into Teams. Share my screen again. It didn't seem to give me the option. Right, done it properly this time. Right, sorry, that was complete user error on my part, but hopefully that's solved. I assume somebody will scream at me if you can't see my screen, but I guess you can. Right, so this is the customer service workspace. Now, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to navigate to a dashboard, and I'm just doing this to show you the concept of sessions and tabs. So whenever we open a record in the customer service workspace, when I click on, say, this customer record here, it starts a session. And in that session, it's going to put me a tab, and that tab is going to contain the contact, account or case or whatever record I clicked on for that to come up. A little bit slow. I'm on quite a slow internet connection, so apologies for that. But there we go. My contact records come up. Now we've got this smart assistant thing in the productivity panel. I'm just going to shrink that out of the way for a second and mention that a bit more detail in a second. So I've got my contacts up now. You can see I've got an account record. If I click on the account record, what we've got is another tab has opened within this session. So I've now got my contact open and my contacts account. And if I wanted to, for example, to create a case, I could go cases here and I could see a list of cases, and then I could click new case button, for example, and I could open a new record. So what I'm going to do, if I swap back to the home panel, so I've got this session open here. If I now open, let's just open a case at random. So now what I've got is two sessions open, and this might be then two separate conversations. So as an agent handling multiple web chats concurrently, for example, or talking to several people on WhatsApp or any mixture of those things, I'd end up with a session per conversation. So if I click back here on my name, I've got my contact record, my account record, and this list of cases that we're working on. And if I click back on this case, I've got the case open, and then I could open the customer, for example. Now, if I go to this productivity panel, you can see here the Smart Assistant is suggesting possible knowledge articles or other cases that might help me resolve this problem. I've also got here agent scripts, so these would be guidance to the agent as to how to do things. So they can give you text here on how to greet the customer. We can also have macros that would run to do automations. And when we build the macros, again, it's no code. They're not quite Power Automates, but the interface we use for creating a macro that works within the customer service workspace is a little bit like creating a Power Automate. And then we've got knowledge base integration as well. So we can search the knowledge base interactively without directly from here, and you could do things like emailing the knowledge article to the customer or linking it to the case because it's helped me resolve it, and all those sorts of things. I haven't got it enabled, but you can also instigate a Teams chat from here if you wanted to consult a supervisor or somebody internally. So I hope you kind of get the idea that this interface is not that dissimilar to everything we get in the customer service hub, but it's all been tailored with a contact center scenario in mind, where I'm juggling lots of things and I need to juggle multiple conversations in one go. Another important feature up here is this presence. So what this presence is doing is I've logged on to Customer Service Workspace, and the presence icon is kind of when I connect to Azure Communication Services and to the Omnichannel system and everything, that's my presence on there. So currently I'm available, and I could, as an agent, say, well, I'm busy or offline or whatever. And you can also create custom presences. So you might have a custom presence of gone to lunch, for example. So I could put myself in that state, and then the supervisor can see that Neil's at lunch. And then 3 hours later, they'll realise that I'm still at lunch and maybe have words with me. So hopefully that sets the scene with the customer service workspace, but the bit we're all interested in is the voice bit. So what I'm going to do to start with is I'll try and demonstrate to you a voice call, albeit with the feedback issue I described, and then I'll show you some of the setup and how easy it is to configure things, and I'll even dive into my IVR bot and I'll show you how my bot was actually created and how it works. So you can't see, well, maybe you can if you can see the video. I'm just going to try and make a phone call on my phone direct to this number. It takes a bit of time to connect because I'm in the UK and I'm connecting to an international number, but hopefully we'll get that. I'm just going to put it on speaker. And of course that didn't work because all live demos don't work smoothly. Let me try again. There we go. So hopefully you can hear this through my mic.
Welcome to NP Dynamics Limited. Please be aware that these calls may be recorded for training and quality purposes. Press 1 or say sales for sales inquiries. Press 2 or say service for product issues. Understood. I will transfer you to a service agent now.
So that's my IVR bot in action. It's now transferring the call. You can see that the call has come into me as an agent, and I've accepted the call. I'll just try and kill that. Hello, Neil. How may I help you today? So what we should see, you can see here in the transcript, the agent can already see the conversation that the customer had with the bot before it got transferred. And the transcript will start to build real time. Hi, Neil.
I'd like to
help with
a service problem today.
There we go. It's coming through. It's a little bit laggy with this connection, but you get the idea. My transcripts are coming through. I get this control here, and this lets me control the phone. So I could mute, for example. I could also put the customer on hold. I could consult with other agents. I could transfer the call either to another agent that I'm consulting with, because maybe somebody could handle his customer's queries better, or maybe I could just transfer them to another queue, because maybe they came, say they pressed the wrong button on the IVR. I could then say, oh, okay, well, I'll transfer you to the sales queue, and you could do that, and then somebody else would pick it up. I can also do things like pause the recording, which is very important from a compliance point of view. You know, if the customer's giving credit card details out or whatever, the agent needs to be able to pause the recording. I've actually found as well we can actually apply masking to the transcript. So if the customer said a credit card number and I hadn't paused the recording, it won't actually show in my transcript. It would get hashed out because I've enabled a masking. And then you could even create custom masks to mask whatever data you wanted from it. You can mark a number as spam if you don't want to do it anymore, etc. So you get the idea. I can control the call. What I can then do is I've got my agent script here to help me handle the problems. I could run macros to categorize the call or whatever. I can go here and say I want to create a case, and I'm going to create a case, and it's linked then to this conversation. So this case and this call is all just linked up. I'm just going to end the call because it's, you know, we all know how a phone call works, and I don't really feel the need to show you that, you know, how we talk on the phone call. So this is basically the interface, and this gives me capability of handling the calls. My sentiment remained neutral, but obviously it's doing real-time sentiment analysis as well as, so that's the kind of setup. Before I go on and show you the actual setup behind this, I just wanted to show you a couple of things. So I'm just going to close this session down because I've finished with it. If I go here, I'm just going to bring my customer record up again. Now I could be doing this. I'm still in the customer service workspace, but I could do this anywhere. So you can see in the timeline, I've got varying voice calls that I've done. And if I open a voice call, I just wanted to show you what that looks like. So what you get is a recording of the call. Now, I think on the trials, they don't actually store the recordings, so we might not see that. I didn't actually connect to that call. Let me try another one. Sometimes I'm starting the call, but I'm just doing it as a test. I'm coming straight out. There you go. So I'd have a call recording. I could play the audio clip. I've got the transcript, and all that's there. I could download the transcript if I wanted. I can even search the transcript to look for certain words and things. I know, you know, who the agent was, and I know what queue it came in on, and all the details about it. This sessions piece, if you imagine each phone call could have separate legs, so this is split into two because I'd get details how long were we talking to the bot is one session, and then how long was I talking to the agent would be another session, and then if it was transferred to somebody else would be another session. So I can get analysis on splitting up how the call was split up. These metrics again don't get populated with a trial, but they do in a production version. So I get all sorts of other MI about, you know, how fast the agent or the customer's been talking, what's the listen ratio of the agent, etc. So there's all sorts of stats I can get. So that's what I can get on the conversation. Now, if anybody's worked in a contact center before, you will probably understand quite quickly that they have a thirst for MI and for understanding what's going on and call profiles and stuff. So the first port of call for a supervisor is your ongoing conversations dashboard. Now, I haven't got any ongoing conversations at the moment here, so you have to imagine this a bit. What I can see in here is all the conversations that are happening, and they could be web chats, they could be telephone conversations, WhatsApp conversations. So I can see which agents talking to what customers. Here I can see as an agent what the sentiment is currently live on those conversations, and I could click a conversation, I could monitor it and listen into a phone call or just monitor a web chat or whatever. I could, if there's a call in here that's waiting to be transferred to an agent, I could transfer it to somebody or assign it particularly to somebody. I get all my different call queues. Now my queues I've got set up in the test system aren't particularly good, but yeah, in a real world scenario, you'd have your sales queue or your service queue or whatever, however else you split it, and you could filter in on looking at just sales calls or service calls or whatever. So it's from here that the agent, the supervisors would control the ongoing stuff. There are some other dashboards, and there's one that I haven't got set up. So the next dashboard would be intraday dashboard, the Omnichannel intraday dashboard, and that would be used to look at what's been going on across all my different channels in the last hour or in the shift today. So, you know, what's going on, what agents taking what calls, how many calls are we getting, what's the customer satisfaction levels, etc., on things that are happening kind of recently, typically in the last hour or the last couple of hours. So it's keeping on top of, you know, what's happening. We've then got historical analysis, where if you want to, we can delve deeper, and you can do this up by, you know, the conversations, the queues, the agents, the bots. And I'm not even going to attempt to go into this in detail in this call, but I just want you to kind of get the flavour that we can get a lot of historical analysis out of the box in terms of the types of calls that have been and what's happened on particular queues or particular agents, and analyse all this. So we've got a wealth of MI available to us. And I'm sure if none of this was good enough for you, you could build custom stuff on top of this if you needed, as well as. So that's the kind of user interface supervisor. Let me try and show you how some of this works. I'm slightly mindful of time. I'll try and do this as promptly as I can. Right, so we get phone numbers. Now, this being a trial, I get, by default, if you spin up a trial, you get one phone number. What I've done is I've said add new number, and I've added this number here, and that's the number we've just seen work. So I've added my own in from scratch just to prove to myself how easy it is. So I can vouch for the fact it's very easy. Now, when you convert this to a production instance, you actually get an extra button that lets you sync with Azure Communication Services. So if you've gone into Azure Communication Services and provision loads of numbers, you just press this sync button and then you'd see all the numbers and you can start to configure them. And when you set up a number, the first thing you do is a work stream. So my work stream defines how I want my number to behave. So what languages do I want to use? How do I want my bot to work and stuff? So I'll quickly show you kind of options in here. Things like, do I tell the customer where they're at in the queue? It's also in here, I could put automated messages. So out of hours, I could say, sorry, please call back between these times and things like that. And then I can decide other things like, are the agents allowed to transfer the calls or consult with other people within teams and things? on the language options, I get all sorts of stuff in here. So it's in here that I can set things like my on hold and wait music, and see here I've said Neil's music, so I've uploaded custom music, which is quite straightforward. You can also here define your bot, and we've got loads of different voices to pick from, but we can also control the speed and the pitch that the bot speaks to. And we've even got this voice style one now. So I could say that I want a cheerful sounding IVR bot, or I don't know why I want this, but I could also make my IVR bot sound terrified. I can't quite see why I want to do it, but you get the idea. I think assistant, or maybe cheerful, or maybe friendly might be ones you want to pick. I'm not so sure about some of the others, but we can if we want to. But this alters the tone of voice, so we get quite a lot of control over the way our IVR sounds. We can also, if we want, configure a post-call survey. So we basically have another bot that kicks in at the end of the call that would say, how did we do today, and that kind of thing. So that's how my stuff behaves. I've then got work classification and work routing. The classification lets me basically assign skills. Now, keep an eye on time. My classification basically works on a response from my IVR bot and gives it a skill of sales or service, and it's going to find agents that are skilled in that. And then what I've got in my routing is basically always routes to the same queue, and within that queue I'd have agents that are capable of handling sales and agents that are capable of handling service, and it would go to the correct agents.
Volume up.
So that's that bit. I just need to go back there. We've got other things we control. So I mentioned that the context variable. So you can see here I've got the context variable. So I've passed one in, which is the response from my bot. And here you can see I've got a bot. So I just wanted to quickly try and show you my bot, so you get the idea of how easy it is to create an IVR bot. So I've created an IVR bot, and this is it. All you do when you first create your bot is you go in here and you say agent transfers, you click Omnichannel, and you then have to connect it to your instance. So you'll need an Azure app ID registration that you just paste in here, and then you pick your instance, and it's just a point and click. It's quite a straightforward process that there's links just to click and set it up. So now my bot is available on the voice channel because I've enabled voice. If you've not used bots before, the way these work is there's topics which might be triggered by other topics, but could be triggered by particular phrases. And then each topic has a set of responses that the bot's going to give, or questions the bot's going to ask. One tip I've got here is I like to split mine down to each topic is quite small, and I find from a maintainability point of view that helps me. So whenever a bot starts, it always starts with this greeting topic, and you can see here I've got a greeting that says welcome to MP Dynamics Limited, so my company. Notice it says uninterruptible message. Now normally if I just used a normal message in the bot, you can always kind of talk ahead. Well, things like saying to the customer, please be aware that calls may be recorded for training and quality or whatever, they're compliance statements, and I don't want the customer to be able to go ahead. So this is where these actions come in. So you can see under the actions, we've got things like this send uninterruptible message. So I get kind of extensions because I've enabled the voice channel, which are specific to voice. So I can hang up the phone, I can transfer the call and things like that. So these are really kind of useful when we're building an IVR bot. So this is how we make our bot kind of voice aware. What I do here is I redirect this emergency check. So this is the concept I said at the start about my bot being unavailable. So what I do here, if I now view this topic, I'm just trying to scroll the screen so it's kind of a little bit more central. What I do is, the first thing I do is I call a Power Automate, and this says emergency check. Now that's a really simple Power Automate that's going to query the Dataverse, and I can pass variables in and out of this. And what this flow passes back is a message and whether I want to hang up the call or not. So this is just queries a custom entity and returns me some fields from it. But then what I can do is things like I can say, well, if the hang up is set to true, read out the message that you've been returned and hang up the call. Otherwise, we're going to go on and continue with the call. So if I've got time, I'm going to very quickly try and show you what I mean. So if I go in here, these are my emergency messages. So the idea is the customer would actually probably have a power up on the phone, and they click a button and they would put it into the emergency state. So I'm going to say, from now on, I want to start hanging up the phone when customers call in. So I love live demos. So I'm now going to phone my bot again. And of course, I've got poor mobile signal where I live. There we go. So now we should get a different response from the bot.
Welcome to NV Dynamics Limited. Please be aware that these calls may be recorded for training and quality purposes. Sorry, our office is burning down. Maybe call back later.
So you get the concept that very quickly, with one click in a power up, we've put the system into a lockdown state where none of the customers are left just hanging in a queue. You know, they know that an emergency is happening. Maybe it's a fire drill, for example. The alternative is, if we didn't go that route, we'd go to my IVR question. The IVR question we heard earlier, it says press 1 for sales or 2 for service, but you could also speak and say sales or service. And what this does is it goes to what we call an entity in a Power Virtual Agent. Now, the idea of an entity is entities are things like email addresses, phone numbers. So they're things we could prompt. So if you said I wanted to prompt for a phone number and somebody keyed in just a load of text, the bot would respond and say, well, I don't understand that because I know what a phone number looks like and I expect a phone number. So what I've created here is a custom one. So I've got sales and service and 1 and 2. So if they click 1 or they do sales, then it would return me sales as being the option they'd picked. And I've actually got, you could have multiple synonyms. So you could say press 2 or say service, but you might also say product issue or anything else. So you could have multiple synonyms to try and increase the rate here. The bot would then echo back to the customer, understood, you said this, so that the customer knows something's happening, and then would transfer to the agent. And notice in here, when we transfer to the agent, whatever the customer said goes in a message to the agent. So the agent gets contextual kind of information as to why this particular phone call was transferred to that particular agent. So that kind of really helps them. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Now, something else you can do in this, in my work streams, I'll just show you the concept of this, but I'd got my work stream here and I then did a classification just based on that text. Now, what I did was actually what we call a fairly simple manual classification. So all it did was say, if the response from the bot is sales, then put a skill on of sales. So it's basically a typical, here's a condition, do this. And that's great, but actually a more intelligent way of doing a bot, or a cleverer way, might be the bot would say, how can I help you today? And that kind of sentence is returned into the classification. What you can then do then is, when we create a classification, if I can create a new one, We can collect, I've done logical rules, so a simple one, a manual classification, if you like. We can actually create a machine learning model. And what we can then do is pass the response from the bot to a machine learning model that we can create. And that will try and then interpret what skills are needed to address whatever that answer is. So we can get incredibly clever here and do some really complex routing. So it's just really to set the scene that if you want to get really clever, you can. And one of my customers is currently experimenting with this. So they're going to start off with a fairly simple logical rule, but then they're going to take that data and they're going to start to build a machine learning model based on where it's been routing to then be able to have the bot ask the customer a little bit more intuitive English-like, or whatever language-like kind of question, rather than being press 1 for this and 2 for this, a prescriptive thing. It's a much more friendly, how can we help you today kind of question. So I'm conscious of time. I've got 10 minutes left. I'm really keen to answer questions if people have got any, or if there's anything I've missed or anybody wants me to go over anything again. That would be, now is the chance.
Thank you, Neil. So let's begin from the top. The first question is from Ryan, asking the question, hi Neil, what sort of scope do we have to customize, tailor forms, fields when working in customer service workspace?
Yeah, that's a great question. And in the spirit of live demo, I'll try and show you some stuff. So when a conversation starts, I haven't got the conversation up anymore. We saw that I got a tab came up that had got my conversation in it. That form, the customization of it's quite limited. You can't create forms and you can't do much with that because there's quite a lot of logic baked into that. But we do have an API available to us. So, well, first of all, before we get into code, you can customize within the customer service workspace things like what tabs are going to come up when a session starts and things like that. And we can customize the way that notification that came to me about accepting the call early on. What we can then do, though, if I go to solutions and show you an example of code. So we've also got an API available to us. So I was testing out a concept here. Obviously, I've not planned this, so hopefully this will work. I've got some code here, this one, and I'll just bring it up in the browser. So what you can do, there's this get conversation ID, if I make that a bit bigger, which is an API from Microsoft. So you can see this. Now that's going to return me the GUID of the conversation that I'm on. And that kind of thing's really useful because then I can take that and I could retrieve the workstream details for it, for example. And then in this bit of code I'm doing, I'm looking at the what channel was on the work stream, and I'm setting the case origin based on it. So I'm automatically defaulting it in. So I'm running this code on load of a case, bringing up details of my conversation, and then putting a bit of automation. So you can start to extend this with code, and there's an API available that would help us. There are obviously some more methods and everything available, but just to give you the idea that yes, you can extend this with code.
Thank you, Neil. So there was a question, what are the requirements for setting up the voice channel in OC? I can't find the option in my channel list.
Yeah.
Does the voice channel have trial version?
Depending on what geo you're in and depending on whether you've enabled the voice channel. So you're going to need to enable the voice channel first of all, and that may or may not be available yet in terms of your geo. So if you spin up a voice trial, then you'll get this phone numbers option. You don't get that unless you've enabled the voice on Omnichannel. Now, if you're in if you've got a license and everything and you're in the right geo, if we go to our environments, and again, this is the danger of trying to do live demos on the fly and just show stuff. But basically, you go into your Omnichannel and you go to the configuration of it, and you can enable different channels. So you need to make sure you've enabled voice within your environment. So if I go to my resources and I go to Omnichannel, I just wanted to show you where you get at this. So I've got somewhere down here Omnichannel for customer service, hopefully. Now I can't see it. Is this because I need to select my environment first? Anyway, I get in here, Omnichannel for customer service, and I need to go to that, and within there I configure which instances, what channels are available on. So if you've got a license or you've got voice available and it's not showing, you need to find your Omnichannel for customer service app, and you click here and you go manage, and in there you then add in your whatever channels you want. So you might not have social enabled, or I think social, SMS, web chat and voice are all separate channels, have to be enabled separately. I hope that's explained it. I'm doing this on the fly and I'm not seeing my I'm not seeing my app to bring it up, but hopefully that makes sense.
Definitely, yes. Ernesto Ortego is asking, in a company with both sales and customer services, the bot would need to route unknown phone numbers to the sales agents using the sales app.
Yeah.
Will they have also conversations and all the capabilities of Omnichannel?
Well, you're not going to. Omnichannel Voice is routing into the customer service workspace or the Omnichannel app, so the customer service workspace. But you could have your sales agents using it, so you'd need to consider that. What you can do though is things like within your extensions here, something else. So if I say show a message, I've got these variables available to me, so I could see what's the customer's phone number, but also what phone number did the customer call. So if you've got a sales line and a service line, I could detect that within the bot and could respond to the customer or route the call accordingly based on the number that they dialed in on.
Thank you. And any other questions? I think there is one question that we missed earlier from, okay, there is a question. Hi, Neil. Can this be integrated with the telecommunications accelerator?
I'm not familiar with the I know the concept of telecommunications accelerator, and that's all about the functionality that a telco would need. So I'm not quite sure. They don't really align. I'm sure if you're working with a telecoms company and they were using the telecoms accelerator to manage their customers and the lines and provision phone numbers and stuff, if they had a contact center, then I'm sure they can use the customer service workspace. But they are different subjects really, because one is about making calls and the other is about managing a telco.
That's correct. Okay, so there is no more questions, just lots of great feedback.
Good.
So once again, huge round of applause for Neil, guys. Always a great pleasure. Sessions always go down really, really well, very well delivered. I think everyone's walked away understanding a lot more than they did about the Omnichannel and now for voice. So okay, great stuff. So lots of great feedback. Thank you once again, Neil. Neil, if you could please share your contact details in the chat so that the community can keep in touch with you. I'm sure most of them are already aware of who you are, but for those that don't or are new, there you go.
Steve,
fantastic.
Hunt me down there if you want to.
Fantastic, Neil. Well, Neil, once again, thank you for a fantastic session, and we hope to see you in person very soon.
Okay, yeah. Somebody saying, can we get training on this? Talk to me.
That's it. Neil is the person to go to if you need training. So yeah, feel free to reach out to Neil. Once again, huge thank you and kudos to Neil.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Excellent. Okay.